You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
This show is being recorded for December 31st, 2025 on December 12th, or excuse me, December 23rd, 2025. But we're just wrapping up our New Year's show a little bit earlier. But anyways, welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And we also bring you stories in the news from a liberty perspective. Today on the show for our panel, we have with us Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So the topics we were going to go over today is really the economy. This will be the last show of the year. And there's quite a story with a run that's happening for gold and silver this year, not Bitcoin for once. Silver is, this economy seems to have a silver lining, and we're going to talk a little bit about a good thing or a bad thing. But before we get into any of that, also too, we're going to talk in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol something that Trump said as well about the economy and prescription drug care and how he's going to make things cheaper for us. So that'll be our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But before we get into any of that, let's get to our quote of the day, which kind of has something to do with the show itself, point of the show. And for that, we're going to go to Peter Schiff. For any of you who have been interested in purchasing gold in the past, gold or silver, I guess, you probably know who this guy is if you really thought seriously about investing in it. This guy is, he has his own podcast called the Schiff Report, I think it's called. And, I've certainly heard a lot from him over the years on, the reasons why we should all be investing in gold and silver. And, he's been saying this for an awful long time, I guess. And yet, it seemed like the ships have constantly, we've been missing them, I guess, on gold and silver, but it seems to finally be happening for him now. And I don't know if this is the issue with the broken clock. I tend to think not. I think his reasoning is pretty good, but, he has been predicting this for a long time, and people have kind of, seen him as a doomsayer. But anyways, let's get to the quote, because I think the quote really says it all about why we're probably seeing what we're seeing out there. And he says, "Printing money is merely taxation in another form. Rather than robbing citizens of their money, the government robs their money of its purchasing power." Okay, so I mean, the government's definitely robbing something.
Yes,
that's the key. But it's a very covert type of taxation. The government is robbing. It's literally is stealing the value of your money. So, while the money sits in your wallet, it's still in your wallet. It just can't purchase the same amount of goods. Exactly. And that's what the government has done to you. It's not like that's just bad luck. The money was in my pocket, and it just all of a sudden got more worthless.
Yes. It's losing its value. Yes.
Anyways, this is Peter Schiff's moment in the sun. What do you think, Leon?
Well, I think it's a good place to be standing in the sun right now. I mean, the guy could probably do it a little tan anyway, so that's good. Anyway, that's my corny joke. Anyway, it's really a bad thing, because we know the government prints money. They print the money. The effect is some sort of inflationary effect out there. And I think Milton Friedman has say usually when you print money and you put it out into circulation, the inflationary effect is felt maybe about 18 months to 24 months down the road, because you end up with too many dollars chasing too few goods. So, and that is where the inflation comes from. But the point is though, this is the government deliberately devaluing your dollar-based assets. That is a deliberate attempt to impoverish the citizens of the United States. The government is actually doing this. But it goes back to something we had spoken about in a previous show, that whenever the government touches anything, it's like the anti-Midas touch. The Midas touch was that
The
you touch
golden
something.
touch.
Yes, it turns to gold, right? It's gold.
Yeah.
The government has the opposite effect. Every time they touch something, it turns to crap. So it's the anti-Midas touch. And this is why it is so vitally important to keep the government out of nearly every area of our lives. In this particular case, I don't know what we're going to do about this particular one that Schiff is talking about, because the government, of course, they have a central bank. And are there alternatives to the central bank? I think there are, but it will be very difficult to dislodge the government from its role in this particular case. But like we said, more freedom will come from less government. We have to figure out how to have less government here.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right into the news. Silver is and gold are both at record highs. Bitcoin seems to be stumbling a little bit. Let's watch a video to catch everybody up on the news of the day here, because literally, if you are in silver, you're you're feeling pretty good right now, I think. Here we go.
The price of gold and silver is skyrocketing, and it has people cashing in on their valuables.
Inside this Grandview coin appraiser store,
it's like a little scavenger hunt.
Word is out that gold and silver prices are soaring.
Anytime you see a big number that gold goes up, everybody starts coming in.
Wow, sounds like gold and silver have had a real run this year. So let's find out exactly how well they're doing.
Precious metals are on fire once again. Gold hit a fresh record highs near $45 an ounce, $4,500 an ounce, marking its 50th record high for 2025. The prices are up a stunning 70% from just $2,600 in the month of January. This is also the strongest annual gain since 1979. Silver, in the meanwhile, is keeping pace. The metal has hit an all-time highs near $70 an ounce mark, recording a massive surge of 140% from the month of Jan.
So what's driving the surge?
Escalating U.S.-Venezuela tensions, expectation of further interest rate cut from U.S., robust central bank demand, and of course, sustained exchange-traded fund inflows. Also adding to the demand is portfolio diversification, which are powering gold and silver both on the higher side. Silver also is being lifted by strong industrial demand, tight inventories, and supply constraints.
A lot of people consider Bitcoin to be similar to gold and silver as a hedge against the government watering down its own money supply. But let's check in on how Bitcoin's done this last year. This report is from about a week ago.
This alert, take a look at Bitcoin. Just a second ago, it was down 5.25%. Right now, down 4.97% to under $86,000. It's at $85,858. It's kind of been a brutal 24-hour crypto freefall, dragging nearly all crypto stocks into a bit of a winter abyss here. In particular, the so-called Bitcoin hoarder company.
So there you have it. And let me bring some graphs up just so we can really show visually what's going on here. This is silver year to date. So you can see all the way from January. Oh, sorry, I don't have it shared on the screen. Let me bring it up here. So this is a graph of silver from year to date. And you can see it started the year right under $30. It is over $72 right now, currently, as we're watching it. And this is kind of a live graph as well. Let's jump over to gold, and you can see that started the year. It looks like it was about 2,700 roughly, and that is right now over 4,500. And if you're curious about Bitcoin started the year at about 93,000, 94,000, right in there, and it is currently taking a loss. It is at 87,000. It's kind of all over the place, so it's not really a clear trend. But what's interesting is it's not doing the same thing that gold and silver does, right? It's going all over the place, and yet this is a steady progression for both gold and silver. And like we were saying, one of the things that makes this interesting is because this is what used to be money, right? I mean, when people justly didn't trust their government hundreds of years ago, they didn't trust the money just because they had a king's picture on the face, right, of the coin. They wanted that promise to have a little more behind it than a king's picture, and so they used a commodity that people would be willing to accept, as part of that exchange, so that they knew that they had a little worth in their pocket that other people valued and would be willing to accept. And this gets us into questions about what is money and all that. But the reason this is happening is it's a story about what's happening to our dollar. It's not a story about somehow silver and gold are just wildly in fashion. Right? Just dumb luck. Now, this is a story about what we have been doing to our economy. And to look at this even longer from the fallout of COVID, if we look at the chart on its max, you can kind of see what happened around COVID. The government, it's hard to say they were responsible in these years, but I guess we were productive enough that we didn't see the declines in the currency as clearly. But right here, when COVID happened and they told us, stop producing and don't worry, we'll make money for you.
Yeah.
That's when
Out
we
of
saw
thin
the
air.
spike.
Yes.
And eventually this is gold, right? Or excuse me, this is silver rather. And, once things started to maybe get back to some semblance of normalcy, it just sort of flatlined for a while. But then, around that last year of the Biden administration, you can see, that's when inflation started to spike up. And here we have it, and it's just continued under Trump. And a lot of people are betting that, with Trump essentially, trying to keep interest rates down on through the Federal Reserve and such, that this is we're going to continue to see a hole being eaten in our money. Leon, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I mean, this run up in silver is obviously it's some sort of demand driven, I think, because industrial demand is strong for silver right now. And I think the everyday investor, investors in general, right now inflation right now I think is really the problem, because inflation is a little bit higher than we would like to see it. So I think investors are looking for places to store their wealth. Like you were just saying, you don't want to put it in your pocket and it's losing value even though you're not doing anything to it. So I think some of it is inflation driven in the sense that people trying to move their money into safer harbors, shall we say. So it is not surprising to see the run up in precious metals. Silver in particular is astonishing right now. But this slump in Bitcoin, I'm a little bit surprised at this time, because even though Bitcoin had not yet gained the full like widespread use as we would like to see it, it was gaining a lot of traction. But obviously investors are not seeing it in the same manner as they see precious metals, because Bitcoin was supposed to make the first headway into giving us usable currency that is not tied to the federal government, that they can just inflate the dollars and destroy our value. Bitcoin was not supposed to be that. So the theory of Bitcoin for the layman obviously was that it was supposed to become a fairly safe harbor where the store of your wealth would be protected. The value of your wealth would be protected. But we're not seeing that right now, even though Bitcoin have not like truly gone off the cliff. It have certainly been down quite a bit since the beginning of the year. I think it's even further than the beginning of the year, because at one time I think Bitcoin had gotten up to about 120, maybe 115, $120,000. So the idea of Bitcoin becoming a good place to store your wealth, I think I've dissipated a little bit, but I don't think it's fully gone. I know the crypto markets are very, very volatile. I've been involved with crypto for quite a while now. They're very volatile. So Is this just, are we just seeing volatility at work? It's possible. It might be just a short-term phenomena in keeping it with history. Or is this a more realistic look by investors of what these cryptos really mean and what they can do for us? I am not sure about I'm not sure about the answer to those questions, but it's an interesting phenomena that is presently ongoing.
I think the key is that, when you mentioned that this is supposed to be money, and, that was the whole idea behind Bitcoin, that it become money. But the reality is that it's not really being used that much as money. It's being used as a store of wealth. And that part of the problem with that is that, gold and silver were money in the past because it was considered to be, a potential store of wealth because it was a commodity, right? I mean, see, gold and silver were literally a commodity, but Bitcoin isn't really a commodity. It's just ether, right? I mean, it's just a series of zeros and ones.
Digital assets, if you want to put it in layman terms. Yes.
But its only asset, truly, is that it's supposed to have the utility of becoming money, to become a ledger. And if we think about what is money, right? Money is just a system of promises that people use, with each other. When we do work for each other, if I go over and cut Leon's lawn, then Leon would have to have something to give me at that point to get me to mow his lawn, right? And if somehow Leon didn't have something at that moment that I wanted, we'd have to have that coincidence of wants to be able to really do the exchange. But if we have something called money, that money is just a ledger. It's a promise to say that, hey, you know what, this guy did something for me, and later on, somebody else will kind of honor the promise and do something in return of similar value for somebody else. And that's really what money is. It's just a system of promises. And what kind of gives those promises a little extra weight is that it's not just the government claiming it's a promise. It's the gold and silver that used to be in those coins was worth a little bit, right? I mean, so that you had the idea that it doesn't matter. In the end, I don't have to know much about this guy. I just have to know that he has the gold and the silver coins, right? That everybody wants that gold and silver. So this, is, had a property that made it useful as money. But if now and one of those things is scarcity, right? I mean, the fact that there wasn't an unlimited amount of silver and gold, right? Well, that's one of the things that Bitcoin has, right? It's got in its algorithm built in that it's scarce. But okay, it's scarce, but it's like doesn't do anything else for you other than to be a ledger, if that's the case. And what if people don't care about that ledger, right? What if they decide they'd rather have seashells instead of Bitcoin? Right? I mean, this is part of the problem, right? Is that the ledger's only worth something if everybody thinks it's worth something, and the only utility it has is to be used as money. So I mean, if Bitcoin really takes off and gets to be used as money, then it's got value because it's a utility. It's something that everybody values to be able to do their exchanges. But if it doesn't start getting used as money, it's like we're making baseball cards or something. Everybody's just buying a bunch of baseball cards. I got value here. Well, if somebody will accept it from you, maybe.
Maybe, sure, that's true. But the whole idea though behind Bitcoin was this for it to become like peer-to-peer transactions. Like you and I can do a value transaction without using actual United States dollars, right? That is how it was supposed to gain utility, these peer-to-peer transactions. And that to me was a very good concept. I mean, there are people right now in our economy who accept Bitcoins for payment of goods and services. I don't know about other cryptos being so widely used as Bitcoin, right? I mean, I own quite a few different type of cryptos, but the point is though, Bitcoin is what was supposed to be safe money, right? And I use that distinction because it was out of the hands of the government, and it had the scarcity value in it, in the sense is that some central planner could not get up one morning and decide, well, I'm going to print 100 million worth of bitcoins and put them into circulation. That cannot be done with these cryptos. But somehow or the other, I mean, I don't know if what we are seeing right now in Bitcoin is that people are starting to give up on this whole idea of cryptocurrency, or is it that it's just going through a slump? It's just going through the same volatilities we have seen historically with these cryptos. I don't know, but personally though, I think it's just part of the volatility. That's all. I don't see it as losing its utility. I really don't see that.
Well, let me show, at least in the maximum scale trend here, so we can kind of see what these different things have done, because you can see that Bitcoin has been a good performer over a longer period of time.
Yes.
So here, if we look at Bitcoin, it's around zero, around 2016, the beginning of 2016. I think it looks like this graph just isn't recording lower than that, but I thought I recalled it being, starting from near zero, and it was around 2012 or 2011 or something like that.
I think Bitcoin hit the market in 2009, actually.
Oh, 2009. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it started out at zero, and this is just where the graph picks up. Okay. So, but you can see it's been a remarkable run for Bitcoin. I mean, if you had Bitcoin at, like for pennies in 2009, those pennies have multiplied into today's value. A penny became $88,000. I don't know what other investment could have ever done that for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess the big question is there anything to it, or is it just a bubble, like a baseball card, right? I mean, like, you happen to have a baseball card that you bought of, say, Babe Ruth, and suddenly that baseball card, so many years later, it, becomes worth, maybe $10,000 or something, and you only paid a penny for it as a kid. Is that really, is there something there? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is this, if somebody wants it for that amount of money, then it's worth it, I guess. But that's the question. I mean, what are we seeing here as far as Bitcoin if it's not being used as money? Because if it's being used as money, then it's a utility. Everybody values it because it works as a utility. Yes. But if it's not, and it's just a store of value, how is it any different than that baseball card that, quite frankly, people could make more of, and people could just decide they don't like baseball cards tomorrow, and then suddenly that baseball card is worth nothing. So,
well, I think the marketplace have me yet seeing the full potential of cryptos, though. To be honest, I don't think so, because I mean, look at we comparing Bitcoin to gold, silver, and say the US dollar. The US dollar been around for God knows how long, but gold and silver, you could go read the Bible and you read about gold and silver, and I mean, how old is the Bible? How many thousands of years have these things been written?
And by the way, if we were going to look at the value of a coin, of a dollar from way back when, 100 years ago, it's kind of like the inverse of these charts, right?
Yes.
It's starting at a high value and it's going down as far as what it can purchase, right? If you were to compare it.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Leo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's good. So we I mean, if you really want to look at it, these things are new, right? Because I'm almost certain Bitcoin, which was the first of the cryptos to come about, it started in 2009, and that's 2009, you're talking about 15, 16 years ago. And we compared to things that are more widespread, have been used for a long time. And this is what we comparing Bitcoin to. And this is what we call in the cryptos in general. That's what we're comparing them to. So I still think Bitcoin has a future. Cryptos in general have a future. There are so many cryptos right now, 300, 400 of them, or whatever it is. Many of them are going to die off. They're never going to see the light of day in terms of being anything of worth.
By the
But
way,
I
Peter Schiff, who we talked about earlier, refers to those coins as shit coins. There's
yes,
Bitcoins and there's shit coins, right?
yes,
And the shit
yes,
coins are
yes.
the one you throw money into and they never go up.
Never go up. Yeah, that's true. I think that, I mean, the top 20, 25 coins, I think there are hope for them. Everything else, they're going down the tubes at some point in time. I really think so. I mean, some of them have been out. Some of them have been out and they have gone. I mean, full disclosure, I had 2 coins that went to was actually turned out to be shit coins, shall we say, right? And stuff. And yes, lost some money there. But the point is though, I still think like the top 20 coins or so, or 25 coins, I think they will get widespread use. There'll be competition for their use and all that kind of stuff. And I think one day they'll be, I mean, with all these AI things coming in right now, and I think one day these coins could be in wide use, where you and I could do a transaction without the involvement of the government. And we know what the government does when they touch it. They have the anti-Midas touch. So we shouldn't be surprised at what they're doing to the US dollar. So I think crypto has a future. I already think so.
Well, Bitcoin aside, I did want to talk, especially before we lose our public access audience, just a little bit about what this implies for the economy. Because when we see these things going up, it's because people are lacking faith in the dollar, and for good reason, right? I mean, it's what Peter Schiff was saying at the beginning in his quote. That they're literally draining the value from your wallet, without most people really understanding what's happening. And let's just take a few snapshots before we lose the public access audience. But I mean, here is the debt, right? This is from Treasury. We've talked about this a lot, and they're behind because it's government, so they're slow here. They're only showing 37 trillion. But if we look at the U.S. debt clock, we're actually at 38.5 trillion in debt. And what this means as far as debt to individuals, an individual taxpayer in this country. So the people who are paying taxes, not little kids, and even though little kids actually are carrying this debt.
Yes.
The taxpayers, if they were to pay today, you would all owe $330,000 a piece. Okay.
Jeez.
Just let that sink in, what that means about the health of the overall economy. And if you're watching in public access, we're going to keep talking about this for a little bit longer. You can catch the rest of our discussion on knuckleheadsofliberty.com. So I encourage you to come there and look at it, because this is really how the government is stealing our liberty. It's happening right in front of us, and we're just not seeing it. But check us out there, knuckleheadsofliberty.com. So Leon, back to you. This is nuts, right? You look at this debt clock and
well, I wouldn't, Jason, I wouldn't use the word nuts, okay? Not at all. Not by a long shot. I think
diabolic.
It's evil and immoral, because this money is not going to be paid back by you or I. It's going to be our children and grandchildren and probably great grandchildren is going to have to bear this debt. I mean, how immoral could it be that we are leaving this thing to our descendants? Like, I have a grandson, and he's involved with this, and he doesn't even know this.
Yeah.
This is the insanity of all of this. I think this is downright immoral, and I'm not joking about this. That we of this generation, the voters in this generation, are allowing this to happen. We cannot escape responsibility for this. We are allowing this to happen to our children and grandchildren. We were just on our previous show, we were talking about child abuse. This is child abuse of the worst kind. We are burdening our children with debt that they have no path of running up.
Well, and just to give you a sense, and this has changed since the last time we looked at this on the show. So I guess the Treasury's keeping up with this chart better than they are the other one.
Oh, yes, everything else, yes.
Yeah. But if you look at this, Social Security is the biggest thing that we're spending money on, which, by the way, it's not in the Constitution. That's not something our government's supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
You know, when they tell you they're going to give you Social Security, the most certain thing you can know is, yeah, and they're probably blowing away somebody else's security in the long run, for the
Yes.
lie that they're giving you today. But if
Yes.
you look at the number two thing here, it's interest. 15% of the government spending in fiscal year 2026 is on interest. That's
Interest.
more than we spend on our defense. Let that sink in, right?
Yes.
Rome didn't collapse because, you know, they weren't fierce enough. They collapsed because they couldn't pay their soldiers, right? I mean, that's ultimately they were paying people in pot metal because they totally defunct their currency, right? And that's what we're starting to see. That may be what we're starting to see with this. And so when we see guys like Trump and others that, you know, and to be fair, I mean, Trump came into a bad situation, but Trump is selling something that is very similar to the bad situation in the sense that he's saying, hey, look, you know, we gotta push those interest rates down with government. You know, this is part of the story of how we're getting here. There's no reason for government to be involved in the money supply. Literally, we can have gold and silver backed, you know, commodity currencies, market derived currencies. You don't need government. I mean, because think of what we said money was at the beginning of this. It's a promise that two people make to one another that, you know, one guy does something for somebody, he gives them back a promise that somebody else. Why do you need government jumping in the middle of that promise, messing with the promise, watering it down? That's not a service, right? That's literally like you letting a thief into your, you know, into your bank account. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is kind of nuts, but I mean, this is the story of what we're doing here, you know, and it's just absolutely nuts. And we've shown this. This is our debt to GDP, how much from our congressional budget office, and you know, shows that the worst we had it before recent times was World War II, when we had as much debt as we were making as a country. We're there again, and what do we have to show for it? You know, we stopped Hitler here. Okay, what the hell did we do here? We did nothing except a bunch of stupid things. You know, policing the world, all kinds of, you know, dumb social programs, Social Security. Anybody? Does that look like our futures are very secure here? They're showing this going off into the stratosphere, and nobody seems to be willing to stop it, other than, like, you know, Elon Musk and Doge, and look what happened to them, right?
Right.
Anyway, Leon, sorry, I'm just going on and on.
I know. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I think this is highly immoral. It really is. I mean, and I don't think I can say this enough, that we are allowing this to happen. And that's the way it is. We are allowing the politician to do this to us, not to us really, to our children and grandchildren, and grandchildren, and our great grandchildren. This is unbelievable.
But this situation is putting our society under a lot of stress, and I think that's what we're starting to see with precious metals. We're starting to see some of the fractures that are starting to occur with the growth in precious metal. Now, granted, it sounds like, you know, because there's a lot of economic activity that needs silver, it sounds like that's also driving the price. Because if you noticed here, silver's up 140% so far year to date, whereas gold is only up 70%. But both of them are headed in that direction, right? So maybe you could say silver is overstating it, but either way, both of these are still trending in the same direction. And that's that people are starting to worry that all of this debt, these treasuries that are being held around the world, that we are not really serious about paying them back, except with watered down dollars. So, yeah. And
China, who's essentially our arch enemy, holding quite a bit of it, you know. So you don't know if that is good or bad, right? But they are holding quite a bit.
Well, I think that you could say that there was something maybe a little bit good in the past, because if you're doing business with somebody and if you owe them something, they're less likely to shoot your house up if you can't pay them back, right? But we're getting to the point where China may be starting to realize we're never going to pay them back. so I mean, you know, and this is an immorality from us, right? This isn't an immorality from China for loaning us money. This is an immorality for us of not having honest money, right? Of thinking that we can play a game where we can give somebody a piece of paper that says we owe them something, and then we can water it down and pay them back in cheaper dollars. And that's what our government is doing to other people, our trading partners around the world, and it's doing it to us as well. Any person who's holding dollars, the government is doing this to you.
This should be criminal, to be honest. Right? This should be a criminal act, if you want the truth. Seriously, I mean, doing what they do to us, but then we are enabling the criminal act because we holding dollars in our pockets, and the government is watering it down, and you know we do nothing about it. We send the same people back to Washington all the time. I mean, I think incumbents get reelected at a 92% rate or some kind of number like that. That is disgusting. It really is.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things I think that's confusing for a lot of us too, because there's a lot of us who've been concerned about this for a while, but we haven't seen this trend in gold and silver recently. It's been kind of holding steady. And I think part of the issue there is that as we become more productive as a society, you know, we wind up creating more things, and that gives cover for the government theft, right? Because the government steals just enough and not too much. We don't notice it because our dollar maintains its purchasing power. But if you think about it, when we get better as a society, technology, where is it? We don't have the same technology as we had in 1970. Our technology is all better, right? Well, as technology gets better, we should be making things more cheaply, right? I mean, you know, you get a shovel, and you're digging with your hands. You're not going to dig as many holes as you can dig with a shovel. That doesn't, you know, so I mean, that means digging holes should become cheaper, right? And it's the same thing with everything. As we get better technology, things should become cheaper, and we're not seeing that in a lot of areas except for high tech. You know, I mean, your TVs, you know, they may be going down a little bit and the technology value increases, but the point is computers. We should be seeing that with lots of things, and we're not, because the government is stealing from us. That's why we're not seeing it with all those things.
Absolutely. So, and is that, like Peter Schiff said, is inflation is nothing but what a tax upon us. That's what it is. It's a tax, and I mean they don't call it that. They don't tell you that they don't tell you that in any way. It's like a wealth tax. It's just robbing you of the value of your assets. That's what they're doing. Any dollar-based assets, they're robbing you of it.
And that's why it's so laughable when you hear people who condemn Bitcoin. I mean, by the way, Peter Schiff condemned Bitcoin, but it's because it's not gold. He's mainly into gold and silver here. But the people who condemn it, who like the government situation, who are saying they'd rather be in dollars, you know, those people, they'll call Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme. But the biggest Ponzi scheme of all is the dollar. Right?
The dollar, yes.
The government is literally watering that down from underneath you, you know, and that's what these debt charts are showing, you know, is, you know, that the government is selling our futures out, right? You know, they're doing it as covertly as possible, putting it on your kids in the future, you know, and this is why it's no mistake that, you know, so many kids coming out of school can't figure out how they're ever going to own a home. Right.
Exactly.
You know, they come out with this wonderful college education that the government told them, don't worry about. It's the best thing ever. And we'll just back your loans for you.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they owe more money than they may ever be able to pay back on those.
Exactly.
It's just nuts. It's the government screwing up one thing after another, and it's one scheme after another. And I mean, the cure, you know, we talked about this in the last show, but let me bring back up his quote. And that was Steve Forbes. And he said, the real cure for what ails our healthcare system. Now scratch out healthcare system and says everything.
Everything, yes.
The real cure for what ails our society today is less government and more freedom.
Freedom.
Right.
Exactly.
and he was talking about healthcare, and he's correct about healthcare. But if you applied the statement to everything else, you'd be correct there too.
Because at the end of the day, really and truly, at the end of the day, when people are free to interact as they please, okay, without government interference, we could always between us negotiate better outcomes than if we have to go through the government, or if the government interceding between me and you trying to get something done. That free interaction, freedom, as Steve Forbes said, that free interaction is what produces better outcomes. That doesn't mean every outcome from a free interaction is going to be good. All right, that's why we have the courts. But most of those things will always be better than what the government can provide or what the government can do by interceding between you and I, trying to negotiate some settlement upon, or anything, whether it's a price or whether it's a service or whatever it is. The interaction between two free individuals was far superior to the government intervening between us in getting anything done.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that oh gosh darn it, my thought just inflated away. While I was sitting here.
The government is robbing more than your dollars, Jason.
Yeah, the government has got me so turned in circles here. Just losing my thoughts here, but it really is hitting us in every aspect, and
Yes.
yeah. So this is something too that there's a narrative out there that things are okay, right? And I mean here's a story from PBS News, and it says the economy expands at a surprising strong 4.3% annual rate last quarter, though inflation remains stubbornly high. And it's good, that we're getting more economic activity, but just think about those things that you are having trouble buying now, right? I mean, those are the real tells in the economy. The fact that kids are having trouble now buying a home, the idea that these homes are increasing massively in value, that shouldn't be happening, right? It's because the government's doing something wrong that all this is happening. Homes should get cheaper. I mean, the land may be a little bit scarce, but we always figure out ways to use these things more efficiently, and we find better ways to build. And that means homes should get cheaper, not more expensive, right? And yet through the miracle of government, it all turns to shit. So,
especially here in California. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And and I mean, one other story, I guess, that happened recently, but this kind of just shows you the just general mismanagement, right? Now, again, this is the Trump administration. They story just came out a day or so ago that they're now offering immigrants, illegals who to self-deport for $3,000. Now they're upping the bid from $1,000 to $3,000 to self-deport. And in some crazy world, maybe this makes sense, in a world where Democrats are offering them thousands to stay. And do nothing, right? Where Democrats are putting them up in hotels and paying for their health care and everything else because the Democrats are just lunatics, right? I mean, there's no way around this, okay? But in that world, maybe this makes sense, offering them $3,000. But think about what this means, okay? We literally had a government where they allowed tons of people to come over the border, and it's not in a way that it was undistorted by government, right? I mean, we had this situation where Democrats were promising free health care. They were promising all kinds of free incentives to come to their places, right? If you come here, we're gonna help you out, and we're gonna give you all kinds of benefits. And of course, there's the right to citizenship if you're born here, and all kinds of other things like that, right? That don't exist in a lot of other countries in the world.
Yes.
And then we turn around a year or two later, and we're offering them $3,000 to leave. And you wonder how we can mismanage ourselves to this situation, where our debt is so high that it's exceeding our GDP. That's how, right?
Yes.
I mean, this ridiculous mismanagement of assets of your resources. I mean, that's how, you are owing, if they were to ever pay this off legitimately, you would have to reach into your wallet for $300 and something thousand, which most kids can't even pay off their college loan. That's like 60 or 70.
Yeah.
This is what you owe of the debt if it were all divided evenly. Of course, that's why Democrats always say fair share, which means nothing for their constituents, but everything for the billionaire.
Yes. Then ask them to describe what fair share mean, and they never could. They never could.
Yeah.
But the growth in the economy was a little bit surprising to me. I'm happy it's occurring, but it's a little bit surprising because I always thought that I'm against the tariffs. Okay, I've always been against tariffs. I think the government should not be telling us who we should buy our goods and services from, or distorting the interaction between me and someone else, even though that someone else is in a foreign land. I don't think that's a place of government. If that person could get that good or that service into a location where I can purchase it and legally purchase it, I don't see what the hell the government have to do with that. But I wonder though, if we had 4.3% growth in the third quarter, if we didn't have the tariffs, I think that growth might have been quite a lot higher. I mean, you might have been over 5%, maybe nearing 6%. Who knows? Because tariffs are really a distortion. It's a tax in a sense, so it becomes a distortion in the marketplace, and Trump seems to love them. I mean, okay, full disclosure.
And just to explain too, just so that if you're listening and you're wondering what a tariff is, you probably know by now if you're not living in a cave. But when people are sending goods to this country, to your Walmart store, that you go and buy a lot of imported goods from there, and that's essentially a tax that the importer gets hit with, and unless you believe, like a Democrat, that rich people just sit around and swim in their vaults of money all day. That's what they do. There's not money sitting around there, right? I mean, that money those goods that are coming in, they're on a margin, right? I mean, there's not this huge thing of profit that you get to take from, and so that means that has to be passed on, right? Just like if you hit Ford with a tax right now, if you said, oh, we're going to tax Ford an extra $1,000 per car for every car that comes out of their thing, right? I mean, well, Ford doesn't sit on a pile of money, right? Ford would have to pass that $1,000 along to the person buying the car, right? And it's the same thing with all those importers that are coming in. So, I mean, when Leon says it's a tax, it's a tax on you. You're paying indirectly. And when that good shows up at Walmart, you're paying a little bit more for it than you were before. So sorry, Leon, I just wanted to spell it out.
No, I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point because a lot of people have this grand confusion in their head about who actually hands the money to the government versus who actually pays the tax increase or the tariffs. So it is true. It is true, for instance, when you hear Bernie Sanders out there talking, we have to tax those billionaires, and, or we have to tax those large corporations. Sure, if you tax a large corporation and the tax went up, say $50,000, yes, the corporation will hand the government the $50,000, but it's not the corporation paying for it. The corporation will pass that along to you, and you pay to the corporation higher prices, and the corporation then hand the money to the government. But people get confused about this handing the money to the government versus actually paying it. You paying higher prices to that corporation, and the corporation will then pay the higher taxes to the government. But people don't get that clear in their head, and that's a problem. And then worst of all, higher taxes almost always stymies productivity. If we could lower taxes all over, God knows what this country will be able to do. Because if you look at those countries that with relatively low taxes, they have always been able to stay relatively stable and have nice economic growth going on for quite a number of years. But you see, we go through this up, down, boom and bust, boom and bust. It's because of these distortions we have in our economy, and we're not doing anything about them. We certainly not doing enough about them to kind of get these distortions out of our economic life.
Yeah, and tons of regulation too. I mean, if we start regulating all kinds of things that, like, you may think that, maybe you're concerned about lab-grown meat, or maybe you're concerned about, the size of the cage that the chicken is laying its eggs in. Well, I mean, all these things, the more regulations you have, the more, things are also going to cost, right? Because, and those costs have to be passed on. So these are things, I guess, where, Trump is a little bit more friendly to economic growth in the sense that he actually understands that you need to remove some of these regulations, but it's not a clear picture with Donald Trump, right? I mean, he does, the tariffs are a restriction. So there's some good, some bad with Trump. With the Democrats, it's almost all bad.
But that's what you're making is a valid point, a very valid point, I think, because I mean, the two things I think that Trump have really been focusing on in terms of the economy. On one side, we have his attempt to lower taxes, because on January 1st, there are quite a few tax reductions that are going to go into effect, which is great. The other thing too, he's been working hard with it in terms of deregulating stuff, which is also great. He did start off with Doge, and which was trying to do some shrinking of government, but I don't know where Doge is right now. It seems to have petered out by now.
I think that's the only government program they were able to kill was Doge.
They were able to kill that one, right? Exactly. Good point.
Kill the guy who's trying to save money.
Yes. Okay. So on one hand, we see this Trump at least doing or trying to do things that are beneficial to the economy. On the other side of that very same coin, we have the same Donald Trump instituting these tariffs. Well, there's an issue of whether he has the constitutional authority to do that, to do it on his own, without going through the Congress. And the Supreme Court will tell us here in a couple of months if he does or he does not. But there is the two faces of Trump. You have the good stuff, tax reduction, the deregulation, removal of regulations and that kind of stuff. Great stuff. We like that. But then we have, on the other hand, we have these tariffs that are hanging over the economy, and having all kinds of distortions out there that we don't need to have. So, I mean, I'm not sure that the tariffs are totally negating the impact of the tax reductions and the removal of regulations, because otherwise we would not have seen the kind of growth that we actually saw. But I think we probably could have seen greater growth if the tariffs were not there at all. Probably could have.
And to be honest too, I mean, if it's just a threat, this is the problem with Trump, right? Is that his rhetoric is terrible on all these programs. So
yes,
if this was simply a threat to say, hey, look, we'll tariff you if you don't lower your tariffs. Okay, you could say that maybe that is a free trade strategy to try and get everybody to lower their tariffs. But the sad thing is, you hear Trump talk about it like it's a free lunch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? We're not, we don't make a profit by having a tariff, but we might be able to scare the other guys into dropping their tariffs, but it's not a some free lunch that you're the goose that laid the golden egg. And this kind of brings us into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, which is something else that Trump has said recently, where he was talking about the whole what he's doing for us in the economy in his last address that he gave about a week ago. And one of the things he said was absolutely nuts. Now, there may have been some truth to it, and that maybe that he's been able to move prices on prescription drugs a little bit here or there. But let's watch the clip here, and we can see what he actually said here about what he's doing for us on prescription drugs. Again, the government helping us by jumping in and trying to fix the problem.
In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%.
Prices slashed by 400 to 600%. It sounds like a lot. Well, after decades of the government stewardship of our education, maybe most of us might not realize that what he's saying by if you reduce it to 100%, it's free. So anything over that, it means the drug companies are paying us to take the drugs. I don't think that number is accurate, but let's go on.
In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward, and I use the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago.
Oh, well, it's through the magic of tariffs, so that explains those numbers.
There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called most favored nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care.
And, of course, the program is named after Trump. And if you recall, too, he said no other president has ever done anything like this. Well, maybe not exactly the same thing, but if you recall Bush Jr., I guess, not Bush Sr., one of his big things is he came in and he told all the seniors he was going to reduce their drug costs. Again, Obamacare came in later and he said he was going to reduce all the costs. I mean, this government continuing to come in and promise to reduce all the costs, and we see failure after failure after failure. I mean, maybe Trump will make a little bit of a dent here. I mean, this is essentially what he's talking about. Here's the White House fact sheet. So I think it's probably more accurate than what he said. I hope.
We hope so.
But, he claims that, by manipulating trade policy, he's going to get companies to lower the prices. And again, I mean, if they're swimming in a pool of money in a vault, maybe that makes sense. But there are some issues, though, with prescription drugs where we honor property rights different than in the rest of the world. And there's deals that the drug companies cut with other countries to give them a lower price. So, there may be some room to move things down a little bit potentially if you treat all customers the same. But even then, that's not a lowering below 100% of the price.
Tell me this thing. The drug companies are paying us to take their drugs. That make a lot of sense, doesn't it? Wow. I wonder how they're gonna get a profit to stay in business. But Trump. I mean, overall, I like his presidency. Okay. But sometimes Donald Trump does say some of the most lunatic things you could imagine, that will come out of the mouth of a politician, not any ordinary politician, a politician who is president of the United States. Like, the man have no understanding, absolutely no understanding of the effects of tariffs. None. As a matter of fact, I didn't vote for him the first time because of this whole tariff issue, as a matter of fact. I thought he was...
Keep in mind, he's been saying for a long time, back when he was just thinking about toying with the idea of running for office back in, I think, the 90s, I think it was. Then Japan was the one that we needed to put all of the barriers up against. Right? Of course, now it's China and everything else. So, I mean, it's, yeah.
And he keeps saying, and I've heard him say so many times, that these foreign countries are ripping us off. These foreign countries, okay, they make some kind of thing that we want. if we give them our dollars and they give us their product, okay, how anybody's been ripped off in that transaction? How? But he keeps saying this. They're ripping us off. They're ripping us off. They're ripping us off. What are they doing? So Trump needs to go to economic schools. I understand he graduated from Wharton's, right? You need to go to economic school. Go back. He definitely need to go back. And you need to go to math school too. You need to go back to school and do some basic math. You cannot reduce something more than 100%. And at least I didn't learn that in school. Okay. So, but Trump just say he's going to do this thing that no other president have ever done. He's right. No other president ever done that because it's impossible to do, Donald Trump.
You know, one of the things about Trump that, you know, some of us in the Liberty movement maybe had a little hope for the first time he came in was the idea that he was a disruptor, right? I mean, look at this trend. I mean, this trend started before Donald Trump, right? You know, Donald Trump did not. Oh, sorry, I haven't got the visual up. Donald Trump did not cause this debt trend. You know, Donald Trump is not the one who put us on this train. Will he be able to stop the trend? I mean, I don't know that that's clear at all. He may accelerate the train. I'm not sure, but he's definitely doing something different, right? And all of these guys who claim that they were just the status quo sanity were the ones who created this mess, right? One after another. So we have to do something different. I mean, obviously, from you know, the best thing would be, hey, you could have elected Rand Paul, you could have elected Ron Paul. Sadly, you know, when we talk about Trump's rhetoric, he's attacking probably the best congressman we've had, you know, certainly in my lifetime, Thomas Massey, and he's calling him a danger and a horrible. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So this is something that is the most important thing, really, that everybody should be keeping their eyes on is the economy, and silver and gold are kind of illustrating this a little bit this year.
Sure.
So hopefully that's a wake-up call to people that your liberty is under assault, and your kids, they may be hollowing the floor out from under them, right? So
your liberty and your asset value are under assault because inflation is a constant assault upon the value of your assets, at least your dollar-based assets. It's an assault upon it.
Yeah. So this is just, you know, again, I guess, you know, go back to our quotes before we leave, but you know, the government is essentially robbing money of its purchasing power. I mean, that's what's happening. So they're not coming to you. Well, they are at tax time coming to you and robbing you, but it's small compared to the drain that they're doing to you through inflation, you know, which is, you know, robbing your money of its purchasing power. And really the solution is just get government out of it, right? Get government out of your wallet and things will get a lot better. Anyways, Leon, you got any final thoughts before we close? Or
I think we have to go back to our founding, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are inalienable rights that given to us by our Creator, whether they believe in God or whether they believe in evolution. I think we must go back to those values that started this country. It wasn't perfect when it started. And I know all those idiots will like this. The first thing they'll point to is, oh my God, we had slavery for so long. Yes, we did. I understand that. But we had ideals, we had principles, and we had things to strive for. Yes, some of our citizens were enslaved and all that. But that is not the point. The point is that we had ideals and we had mechanisms by which we were able to use to solve some of the problems that were plaguing us, even at our founding. We fought a civil war. A lot of people died to change the direction of this country. Yes, it took 90 years after that before the civil rights movement came along. But we had ideals, and the ideal was our God-given liberty and our freedom by which we exercise those liberties. Please keep moving towards freedom. Keep moving towards that inner liberty that was given to us by our Creator.
And keep in mind all of those, that time when we started, we had those ideals and people were enslaved. Those sicknesses, they were apparent in the rest of the world too, but it's those ideals that helped us to overcome slavery when it's still happening in a lot of places in the world today, right?
To this day, yes, absolutely.
So, this is not, this is not something that was endemic to the United States, but those ideals were actually fairly unique to the United States at the time. There were a few thinkers in other places around the world too, and that we were drawing from, but for the most part, this is where it was put into action. And sadly, we've forgotten almost all the lessons, even to the point where, one of the things we should have talked about with the decline of our currency compared to these other precious metals is the death of the penny this year. I don't know why we didn't do that in the show, but maybe we'll talk about it a little more next week. But people look at that, and the lesson most people take from that is, oh, how sad, we don't have the coin with Abraham Lincoln on it anymore. The death of the penny is because we killed the value in it, right?
Yes,
we as our government and our own morals for not holding our government to a higher standard, we killed the value in that. That's why it's going away. Right? It's not because we don't like Abraham Lincoln anymore. So this is it's not an accident that happened. And by the way, just as a little piece of trivia, Lincoln putting his face on the penny, that was the first president that had his face on the money, which is also getting away from the liberty in this country too, as well, because we didn't put rulers on the money. And it took about 100 years to forget that. And that's when we started Lincoln and started putting presidents on all of our money. But that's a story for another show.
Indeed.
So that's our end of the year show. So thanks so much for watching, and think about what you can do in your community to push the ball for liberty. And keep your eye on your wallet, because government sure is.
Yes.
Until next time. Stay tuned and stay free.
Well, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.